T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer is complete. We're on internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. 40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff, 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower clear.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Bullpen. As always, I'm James Roy, and with me is Tom Chavarria. Tom, how are you doing today?
I am great. It has been a phenomenal Thanksgiving weekend. Got to eat some great food, got to catch up with my fam. Little brother came to town. Our Longhorns got it done. My brother-in-law, he has turned me on to Monterey, the football team there, Los Rayados. They won. They beat a rival. I mean, everybody's winning. So, the Texans need to just do the thing and win.
They do, and I think that as we've gotten closer to this matchup, I've become more and more optimistic of how the outcome could go in favor of the Texans. I've reached peak optimism right now, actually, which is a perfect time considering the game is tomorrow. It's been a tough road, but this is the second game in a 3-game stretch that I said was going to be pivotal to the Texans getting a playoff spot, and it feels like it's winnable. So I'm excited to talk about it. What are your thoughts? One, obviously we didn't go live all week this week. We had Thanksgiving. There was a lot going on, a lot to be thankful for if you're a Texans fan. What were your thoughts on the Bills game real quick before we get into talking about the Colts?
I mean, this was what we saw last season. This gave everybody the optimism that, hey, this team could do this last season. You saw a Texan defense that went in and made Josh Allen look very, very human. And lo and behold, last season, he went on to win the MVP. So a lot of people thought, well, it was just a bad day. He even spoke to it. It was a bad day. I'm going to right the ship. And then what happens? The Texans go in there and I don't know if y'all want to say they recreated it, because I think they one-upped it. This was even better, a better performance than it was the year prior. So, if you wanted something to hang your hat on as far as okay, I have a reason to be optimistic about my Texans going forward, it was this. The national media went nuts. They were like, hey, this defense is Super Bowl caliber. It's a team nobody wants to face. You started hearing all the things about Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. And it's things that we've been saying on this podcast the entire season. But it's just good to hear it from, the talking heads around, the country that really don't talk about the Texans a whole lot.
Yeah, the reason for optimism for me moving forward is really, a lot of it is on this game. And I was optimistic going into the Bills game. I felt really good about the Texans' chances against that team, mainly because it's an offense that the Texans have constantly given trouble with their defense. So it was going to come down to what the Texans offense can do. And while the Texans run game is not strong, the Bills run defense is basically a welcome mat. So then with that in mind, when you can establish the run game, it opens up a lot for Davis Mills, who is a solid quarterback, regardless of what anyone would tell you. And so, I think the game could have gone better if CJ Stroud was in. I think he could have really blown the top off of that, with the advantage that, a lack of a pass rush, which we've seen, against the 49ers, there was no pass rush. And we saw this Texans team really take advantage of that. This Colts defense is obviously a little bit different than what the Texans have faced thus far. But one source of confidence that I think I see looking ahead is that this Colts team is entering the first, like the real test of their stretch of schedule, playing high-level teams. They have the second, or I believe the toughest schedule through the rest of the season. So, I mean, I have a lot of reason to be optimistic about this matchup. Looking ahead, I just want, I wanted to ask you how you feel going into this matchup with the Colts, because I know through most of the season we've talked about it being a tough stretch, something that we would hope the Texans could split. That they would need to split in order to show face and get into the postseason. But how do you feel about this matchup now with what we've seen from them against the Bills, with what we've seen, over the past 3 weeks, and with C.J. Stroud returning?
I mean, I really feel like this is the perfect storm if you're a Texan fan. Like, they're on their rise. I think there's some concern in Indy. I don't know what you've heard or what anybody's heard, but I saw the reports on Daniel Jones and his leg, and it's fractured, partially fractured. Like, I saw some clips where he didn't look like he moved around that well. And if you're telling me that Daniel Jones is on an island and Josh Allen had all the free range all over the place and they sacked him 8 times. Now, I maybe Indy's offensive line is elite and they do a really good job. But I really like the Texans' chances going into this matchup, catching Indy just at a bad time. I mean, if they'd have caught them 3 weeks ago, I probably feel totally different. I think right now you've got C.J. Stroud, who spoke to having a chance to sit back and watch a little bit and feeling like, okay, now I see some things that I can do better in my game, which I think is huge for him because, it's easy to say, oh, well, I'm going to watch the film and I'm going to get better and then go out and do it, when you don't always get a chance to sit back and watch it happen and kind of see the mistakes being made in front of you. So you can kind of like be the visual learner where you can't, you can watch tape and then say you're not going to do it. But I feel like that's invaluable time that he was able to, sit down and watch Davis kind of go through some things and go, okay, I can fix this, or I can use that, or I can take stuff from Davis Mills. So I think the Texans are really at a point right now where you feel like they're clicking on all cylinders. Their offense feels much better than it's had in recent weeks. There's red zone touchdowns now. We were talking about the Texans a month ago, just absolutely abysmal in the red zone. So I think like it's a 4-point spread. I think Vegas has 4.5 points or something like that. I really think it should be closer. I'm going to be really interested to hear like where the money came in late on the Texans, because I think it will. And I really think if there was ever a time for the Texans to catch a break, because I just read also Tyler Warren, their stud tight end, who accounts for a lot of their offenses dealing with an illness, they're just catching them at the right time.
Yeah, similar to when they caught the Ravens, when they caught the 49ers, I think we're in a really bad spot when we caught them. Just good timing in the schedule. But I also think, I don't want to discount what the Texans have done and how they've progressed. And as much as some people maybe don't believe me at this point, I have trouble believing you don't believe me with what we've seen. This offense has improved significantly throughout the season. So it's tough to believe that anyone could look at what this Texans offense has done and progressed to and think, oh, they can't keep up or can't pull their weight to some extent against this Colts team. Obviously it's not like top 5, top 10, even top 15 offense in the league, but a very average offense at this point. I think that this Texans offense is poised to take a step past that. But so far from what we've seen, they just need to be average. This defense is elite. So, looking at this matchup, the biggest concern for me is can the run defense step up and hold Jonathan Taylor? We've done it before. This team is 3-1 with C.J. Stroud starting at quarterback playing the Colts. So it is very possible. Now, is this Colts team the same Colts teams the Texans have faced in those matchups? I wouldn't say so. I would say that they've improved drastically. I think that and since Shane Steichen has been hired as the Colts coach, I've been very quick to praise his offensive mind. He's just not really got a lot going on for him, in terms of talent until now. I called it before the season started. I said that the Colts' best option was to start Daniel Jones, and that if they do that, it will be to the detriment of our chances of having 2 easy matchups this year, because the Colts will look really good with Daniel Jones at quarterback. It's similar to Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold last season. It's just like a great offensive mind with a quarterback that people will say is mid, is trash, but he's drafted high for a reason. He's got the tools. He just needs someone who can run an offense that he can work with. And so that's what we're seeing in Indianapolis, but there's only so far that can go. We saw last season with the Vikings going into the playoffs, getting thrashed in the first round after going 14-2. There's only so far that can get you before the cracks start to show. And I think with Daniel Jones, the cracks are starting to show a little sooner than that. And I think that this Texans defense is in a perfect position. They're poised to take advantage of that. I think that you mentioned it, I believe it's his tibia. I don't even know. He's got some sort of bone. To be fair, from a medical perspective, from what I've seen, the fracture could literally be just like a hairline fracture or something very small. It's not like the bone is entirely broken and he's just like powering through it. It could just be a chip off of the bone that's bothering him. But I saw the videos. I mean, Jones's mobility is in question. If that pass rush eats him up, it would force the Colts to become one-dimensional, and it would force a very, I don't want to say easy, but like people talk about Will Anderson Jr. as a pass rusher. I think Will Anderson Jr. is as good, if not better, at run stopping as an edge. Like he gets down the line and he makes some stops in the run game that are very impressive to me. So I think that just looking at the matchup as a whole, there's reasons to be optimistic. And I think the biggest difference for me between this and the Bills game that is maybe making me hesitate a little bit is that Jonathan Taylor, which, I mean, to be fair, last week, James Cook ran a 45-yard touchdown. That was the only score the Bills offense put up. But once that happened, the Texans defense shut him down because they shut down Josh Allen, and there was nowhere else for the Bills to go. So then it became really easy to shut that down. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a very similar script offensively, if the Texans defense can do what I believe it can. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Jonathan Taylor breaks off a really long run for a touchdown early, and then it's just pretty quiet the rest of the game. He's got to get it somewhere. I mean, I have trouble believing he doesn't do something in this game, but I think the Texans defense will be able to key on him once they take care of Daniel Jones. Once they make Daniel Jones have to be the guy, and he shows that maybe he can't under the pressure of what this Texans defense is. Let's see. We got some Instagram comments I'll run through. One of them I'm going to read you. Not really. I read it because it was written. Okay. Could we see Davis Mills take some reps for a QB option to utilize his legs? If you've seen CJ Stroud play this season and pretty much since like late last year, he's been pretty good about using his legs. So I don't know if that would be a reason. The only reason I see for Davis Mills to come into this game is if CJ Stroud was to, knock on some wood here, get injured again. But CJ Stroud has done really well in games where he's returning from injury, so I have no reason to believe that Davis Mills will see the field at all. See if we can put up 21 plus, we'll win. How do you feel about that, Tom? Look, last week there was a stat on the Bills that the Bills lost every game that they scored less than 20 points in, and they won every game they scored more than 20 points. And the Texans defense obviously held them back. I don't know how it looks for the Colts, but do you think it's that simple? I mean, it feels like stating the obvious to say, hold the other team below 20 and score over 20 and you will win. But I don't know how you feel about that.
I mean, yeah, that normally, if you score more than the other team, you win. That's exactly right. 21 is a good number, though. I think, this Texans defense is leading the league in fewest points, I believe, still. And if they can hold a team like Indy, who's put up some big numbers to less than 21 points, I feel very confident about their chances to score more than 21 points. I think that is a fair statement. I believe CJ is going to come out with something to prove. I think when he went down, it felt like that he was clicking a little bit. I thought he was getting really close to like going on a run, and then he got hurt. And then Davis comes in and he wins 3 games, and people are talking about Davis, being the guy or being a guy and for another team. And, I think CJ wants to prove his value, and I think CJ wants to prove he's the number one for a reason. I don't think that he doesn't listen to the noise where people are like, hey, is there a quarterback controversy in Houston? Where the head coach has to go, no, when CJ is ready, he'll play. And because there are people out because there are people out there that are like legit, like, hey, is it the hot hand, or can Davis keep going, or is it for sure going to be CJ? And he shouldn't have to answer that question,
right?
But he's out here answering that question. So I believe CJ is going to be highly motivated to go beat a division rival. Indy has wanted to get after him a lot. I mean, there's the famous EJ Speed and I forget the other guy right now that were like, oh no, he's talking too much and this and that. And he went in there and lit him up, last year. So I believe this is a game where you're going to probably get a really good CJ Stroud. I think that Indy defense is good. So for the people that 2 drives in are going, start Davis Mills over CJ in the second half because he doesn't score 2 touchdowns right away, I would preach patience, but I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, I mean, how it goes. I mean, to be fair, in Davis Mills' first start against the Jaguars, there was people trashing on him for the first 3 quarters of the game until the offense finally came alive and came back and won that game. So I'm not gonna buy into anyone talking about how CJ Stroud's doing within the first 2 quarters, unless of course it's absolutely miserable. But it would take a lot. It would take a massive shortcoming. But just a reminder here, we're live here. We'd love your feedback. All the people on Instagram are giving us good feedback, but if you're over on Twitter, over on YouTube, and you have something to say, feel free in the comments. It helps us out, and we love interacting with you guys. Going back to the Instagram comments, they said Daniel Jones is going to be quaking in his boots, of course. People are asking if Daniel Jones is playing tomorrow. Shane Steichen said on Friday that he will play. So that is, I mean, as hobbled as he is, I guess they're going to send him out there. Who is the Colts backup quarterback?
I was going to ask you. I know that's
Sam Ehlinger still. I thought he went to the Broncos.
I would be terrified if it was Sam Ehlinger.
I don't think it's Sam Ehlinger, but I could not tell you. Tom's on the case. Tom will get that information.
I am.
But yeah, so I'm surprised that Daniel Jones is playing to some extent. I like I said, looking at the medical opinion on that, there was people that were like, well, I mean, if he's cleared, he's cleared. And it could
Riley Leonard.
I'm almost glad that the Colts didn't put in their backup with the history the Texans have with letting quarterbacks that shouldn't be on the field do really well. So I am happy to see that it will be Daniel Jones at least for a little bit. But yeah, and then someone said the Rams have the lowest scoring defense right now. I don't know if I think in your talk you said something about the lowest scoring defense. I mean, the Texans are right there. It's a 4-point deficit. I hope they can get it back. It'd be nice to have the lowest scoring.
Yeah, but that's because they played an extra game, right?
No, the Rams have had their bye, and so have the Texans.
Okay.
So it's even. But yeah, so let's see. Could we see Dare O take a couple of field goals? Xavier 04, I feel like you're trolling, so I don't even know if I want to finish that question. Sorry, I have something in my throat. But yeah, that's a wild question to ask. Kayemi will be playing. He played last week. He'll play. And I don't see why they would give Dario Gambole some leg. I feel like we've got a Colts fan infiltrating the chat. Sorry, Xavier, I don't want to be mean.
I would ask for Dari to kick if I was y'all too. Y'all are gonna need all the help y'all can get.
Not to accuse you of being a Colts fan, it just feels very Colts fan-like to ask a question like that. But sorry in advance if that's not the case. But thank you for your input and thank you for commenting. We appreciate it.
Dari is a hot button topic for a lot of people. On the other podcasts that I do, that guy needs to be far away from this football team, which I don't.
Better, it's almost better that he asked if Dari was kicking than if he asked if Dari should touch the field, because that would be a whole nother question, at least outside of special teams. Fair, yeah. Sorry, Xavier, again. But let's see. Reppin being a Texan the right way with the cowboy hat. Wow, thank you. Yes, when I was in Houston, decided I needed a new black felt, so went ahead and got one at Cavender's. I think I was down at Sugarland. Out at that one is where I got it. But yeah, solid. Resistol 6X felt hat. It's nice stuff. But looking at it, so a lot of people seem to think that CJ, there's obviously this discussion on CJ and who should be what. My big question for you is this. So CJ coming off of injuries typically been pretty solid. Last time he came off of injury and played, he lit it up. Do you have any reason to believe that there might be some rust to be shaken off, or do you think that after missing 3 games, CJ could still come in and feel right at home in this offense?
I feel like he might miss a throw here or there. I think it's impossible to go from like throwing the ball, all the time, to going this huge chunk of time where you don't throw the ball, and then expecting that timing to be accurate and on it game wise. I feel like practice reps, yeah, they're pretty close, but I always feel like game reps are always going to be just a little bit faster. And I think they would tell you the same thing too. So I can't feel bad, or I can't be upset in my mind if CJ's just touch off, or, if he needs, to throw a ball with, a little bit more air time and it's more of on a line. I think that's just going to come with, game reps. So I do believe there is going to be a little bit. I wouldn't carry it more than maybe a half, but I think maybe in that first half you see a little rust.
More specifically, there's a talking point that's been had out subtly. I don't know if anyone's come out as directly and asked this question yet. Davis Mills comes in for 3 games. Nico Collins seems to get fed a lot better, get a little bit more attention paid to him in some people's eyes. That's the way it's been stated, is that Davis Mills is playing, Nico Collins is eating. How do you feel CJ's return affects Nico?
I think this, and this can be wrong, this can be right, whatever. The knock on Davis Mills is that he's a one-read guy, and that's it. And that's a knock on him, is that he's not going through progressions. And I think CJ shows you all the time his willingness to go through progressions, to not just sit on the first read and go, I need this to come open, I'm going to force it in there, or I'm not going to have it. So I can't be upset that he's finding other guys. If you told me he was less accurate, if you told me his percentages were down and he wasn't throwing for, the yardage he needed to throw for, yeah, then I'm like, well, hey, maybe you should go to your Pro Bowl wide receiver more. The fact that he's willing to spread the ball around a lot, yeah, some people feel like, hey, that's strength. Some people feel like, hey, that's a weakness. I tend to lean the other way. I tend to think that's a strength. Yes, would I be like, Nico Collins should get 10 targets every game? Yes. But if the offense is doing what it's needing to do, and he gets 7 and he goes for 80 yards versus 120, and it's spread all over and they still score the points, then I don't care. I think we hyper focus on Nico not eating, but for me, the offense, and to your point earlier about the offense getting better, it's all coincided with the offensive line. For me, when the offensive line changed, everything changed. I don't believe that the weapons are bad. I don't think they've been bad all season. I don't think they miraculously got better. I don't believe that all of a sudden Nico Collins is just open now. I think Davis Mills had time to throw the football. I think when you give CJ Stroud time to throw the football, he's proven he can throw the ball to Nico Collins plenty. He's proven he can throw the ball all over the yard. So for me, more important than anything, the offensive line has grown leaps and bounds. There's a feeling now that they have a group of guys that they can win with, where before everybody felt like, hey, Nick Caserio's got to go because he can't make an offensive line. That was the talking point a month ago. Nick Caserio's got to, he cannot be in charge of creating this offensive line because he made this one and it stinks. Those were words that were spoken on this podcast.
And now we've got two configurations that are perfectly fine. Like, I feel a lot more comfortable with this offensive line. You raised the proper question. Was it Cole Popovich's decision? Was it Nick Caley's? Someone in the offensive staff had some pull in how the offensive line has been structured, and we've seen players that were on the roster all season step in and show up in a way that has made this offensive line look significantly better than it has all season long. So, and that's a huge piece of this puzzle for CJ returning, and why I don't think anyone has overtly drawn the connection between CJ and Nico's performance, because if you look at it, CJ, stat-wise, at the very least, has not exactly lit up the stat sheet behind that offensive line too many times this season. So how is Nico Collins going to eat if CJ doesn't have the time to throw? And I think that will not be a problem in this game, unless, of course, the Colts defense or their pass rush is the one to show that this Texans offensive line is just average and they have a really bad day. But as it stands, I think that they should be capable of giving CJ enough time that we'll start to see, I mean, hopefully very quickly, that CJ was always the clear option at quarterback. Not only that, but CJ and Nico's connection never went away. It was just stifled by the fact that CJ was not, being adequately protected. In the Instagram chat, we've got CJ's going to take the top off Lucas Oil Stadium. I agree with you. I think that with this new offensive line configuration that, by the way, he has not played with, this is something that happened over the course of Davis Mills' time starting. It's how long it feels like it's been an eternity since we've seen CJ Stroud play with 3 weeks out with a concussion. And then let's see, the defense will do their job, and it's on the offense to play complementary football. I think that one thing the Texans started doing before CJ Stroud went out, and something that's carried on through, is playing possession football. Actually, even if they don't score, having drives that are not 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And so what we'll see is even and something you noticed probably in the times that Davis Mills started, as the offense started to pick up, was that even like in the second half when the Texans weren't moving the ball very effectively, they still sustained drives. They didn't go 3 and out immediately. They would get at least a first down and give the defense a break, which is why we didn't see the Texans defense falter at the end of the game. They were still getting a break. They just weren't, the offense wasn't producing points. So let's see, another one. Joshua Sanchez says, how do we think CJ is going to perform Sunday against the Colts? Obviously, earlier in the chat, we had that he's going to take the top off of Lucas Oil Stadium. We've kind of talked to it, but I mean, specifically, how do you think CJ does this Sunday?
22 for 29 for 275 and 2 touchdowns.
I like that one. I think that 2 touchdowns is spot on. I don't think you can expect much more. I would hope for much more. To be fair, in a dynasty league that I'm in, not ours, but the other one that I'm in, my options at quarterback are CJ Stroud and Daniel Jones. And I'm starting CJ Stroud because of Daniel Jones' leg and the fact that I would never start a quarterback that's facing the Texans defense. So I would hope for more, but 2 touchdowns I think is about where it's at. I'd go for like 250 yards at best, and completion percentage for me probably like just over 50. So I'd say we can expect him to throw the ball 35 times, I'd say, and I'd put him at like maybe 20 completions. I think early going it may be a little rough until he kind of settles into the game and the offensive line settles into the game as well. So while we're on the subject of predictions, King Bless 32 over in the Instagram chat did ask for those, and since we are doing them today anyways, what is your score prediction for this game tomorrow?
I feel like 27-21 Texans.
I like that. How do you think it gets there? Are the Texans like up and then the Colts creep back in, or is it like kind of?
Well, I feel like the Texans are going to force a turnover somewhere. I feel like you're gonna see Woody Marks run the football a little bit. I think he's been getting the lion's share of the touches more and more and more. And I think this might be the first game we could see him flirt with, 17, 18 carries, which I know a lot of people have been, begging for. I think that's going to help CJ. I think that's also going to, maybe create the play action that I think has worked for Davis Mills a little bit. I think, play action boot, play action roll that we saw Davis run where, he hit Higgins and he hit Schultz a couple times. I think those are plays we're going to see, dot up for CJ, something that, will be safe. It'll give him an option. It'll give him levels. I mean, I watched. It seemed like an easy pitch and catch for Davis Mills. I can't see a scenario where they don't try it with CJ. I know the Texans are going to kick 2 field goals, so that's where my 27 came from. And I'm not going to discredit, Indy. I still think Jonathan Taylor gets in the end zone. I still think Danny Dimes is able to move the football a little bit. I'm not going to assume that, he's just all of a sudden going to be a bad quarterback because he's dealing with a fracture and they've been able to, score points. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they don't score 21. I hope it's 27-17. That was my initial thought, but I feel like it's a division game. It's in Lucas Oil. They know they need to win it as much as we know we need to lose, or that we would need to win it. So I do believe you're going to get Indy's very best. I think they understand the gravity. If they lose that game, they could potentially lose the opportunity for the division because that would be a tiebreaker type thing. So it's going to be close. If you think that the Texans are just going to go in there and light them up and it's not going to be stressful, you haven't been watching Texans football.
Right. I'll go even closer, and I'm kind of stealing from the game script in Buffalo a little bit. The main concept being that I believe it'll look like a shootout in the first half. Like, I think that you'll get the impression that this could go back and forth and that each team could be exchanging blows, and then it kind of slows down in the second half and becomes more of a defensive chess game, which I think the Texans are liable to win if it becomes. I'm going to go 20-17 Texans. Because I obviously, like you said, I need to get 2 field goals in for the Texans. And I just think that the Texans will break 20. I think the Colts come close. I think it's shaping up to be a very similar game to what we saw from the Bills-Texans. And the big thing is going to be, are the Texans in control? Because that's what it was. As much as it kind of felt like a shootout early on, as the game progressed, it felt like the Texans were in control pretty much the whole game. There was an early stretch where it was a little in question, but for a lot of the game, it felt like the Texans were in control against the Bills, and I feel like that'll kind of feel like the case here. I will say I have it on a last-second Texans field goal. If we're doing the story time ending, storybook ending, 17-17, a minute and 46 seconds left. Look, I'm stealing pieces from all kinds of game scripts today. And 46 seconds left. But anyway, the Texans will take it down there, and Kaimi is in a dome, which is, there's no place like dome for Kaimi Fairbairn. So he's liable to hit wherever they set him up at. Last second field goal by Kaimi Fairbairn to take the game. And with that, the worst the Texans could finish in the division is 4-2. The Colts played the Titans twice. Obviously, they've beaten them twice. They have the Texans and Jaguars, both games still left as we stand. That loss would be huge. It would put the Texans in control of their own destiny, because if they can beat the Colts again, they would own the tiebreaker, because they would have the division pretty handily. They already own the tiebreaker over the Jaguars. The only thing that's holding them back from having a playoff spot is that the Jaguars are up one game by record. So I do think that this shapes up to be the Texans, as it stands, are in the cockpit, in the driver's seat, and the only person that can remove them from the driver's seat is themselves. They've played every game to one score, or won by several scores. They control their destiny. A win here and a win next week, like, they are firmly in the driver's seat, ready to take it, look really good for where they started. So I feel really good about where they're at right now. But do you have any, I hate to do like a shorter live, I guess this is relatively short, but do you have any final thoughts before we kind of bring this thing to a close?
Well, I mean, I think you're probably pretty spot on with your storybook ending. I normally never say that. This would feel like the perfect script based on the way you set it up. I do think it would be interesting, for all intents and purposes, to have JJ Watt on the Pat McAfee show on Wednesday talking about a field goal kicker kicking a game-winning field goal in Lucas Oil Stadium, and it wasn't the
Stroud house.
Yeah, it was the Stroud.
Pat McAfee calls it.
Yep. Him leading a drive, and Jage up there going, "How about them Texans, huh? They look pretty good. I know they struggled at first, but now I'm starting to think the nation's starting to come around. D'Amico and them boys, they got something cooking down there in Houston."
You just nailed it. That's if JJ doesn't say those exact words on the Pat McAfee show on Wednesday, I'd be shocked. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. Well, blessed to be able to do this show, talk about the Texans. Thanks for hanging out with us. I've been James Roy. Find me at James Roy NFL, wherever you get your social media. Tom is TCTom1 on Instagram and Third Coast Tom on Twitter. And we are the Bullpen, the #1 veteran-run Texans podcast, because it is still, by the skin of our teeth, we're still in November, so Veterans Day was this month. But #1 veteran-run Texans podcast in the universe. I think I used that one before, but I'll stick with that. I stand by it until proven otherwise. So thanks for standing by, tuning in, watch. I'm losing my words right now. Thanks for tuning in. As always, stay classy, Houston, and vamos Texans. Oh goodness, I lost the mouse.